Okay, welcome to lesson 4. And this is the lesson that we are going to literally replicate everything we just did in PowerPivot. And to show you that you can do all this in PowerBI, we are going to basically just do everything in PowerBI. So to recap, we are going to bring in our data sets. We're going to create dimension tables, and we're going to link data sets to those tables and create a few measures. So I've just opened up PowerBI desktop. There's nothing special to it. Just open it up and let's get going. So to bring in, the first thing is to bring in our data sets. So this is get data. We're actually going to bring in Excel. So it's going to have us find out where this is. Let's bring in our actuals first. It's going to ask us some questions. Again, if you had SQL, a SQL server, this is where I think Power BI really shines, or any data visualization really shines, is you can get that data from SQL Server and it's always updated. So we're going to do, the thing about Power BI is it actually gives you the option to pull it. If you've created tables, which again, I recommended you do for all of your dimension tables and your fact tables. But when you create a table and you bring it into Power BI, it asks you if you want to bring in the tab. So we actually have a tab that I've named actuals, but the table that's in that tab is actually called fact revenue actuals, as you remember. So it gives you that option. And we just want to bring in just the table. So as you can see, that's the same exact table that we had in the Excel at the very beginning. It's the same exact data that we brought into our PowerPivot in our Excel. So we'll do load. And there might be a little bit of waiting in this. I'm going to push pause on this and come back. Okay, so you can see our fact revenue actuals on the right here. So it's similar to Excel setup. If you know Power BI, this is going to be boring, but if you don't know Power BI, it's very similar. You see this just like on the pivot table in Excel. It's over here, and you can drag these in. And it obviously does not have the same user interface. So again, this is not an in-depth tutorial on Power BI, but it's how you can get started, I think, to really starting to use Power BI. So now let's bring in our revenue forecast. So again, it's going to ask us, okay, do you want the table or the tab? You want the table. Let's load that. Let that load. We'll come back. All right, so now we look on the right. We see both of our fact tables. Now we're going to bring in our dimensions. So I've created an Excel sheet that just houses all of our dimension tables. So if we click that, it's going to give us a lot of options here. So I have created, the ones that have the numbers by them is the duplicates that I made. So I'm just going to click all of these. Dim country, dim customer, dim product, dim region. I think that's all we had. So these are, you can tell the little blue lines at the top means that they're tables. This means it's the tab. So we want to bring in all of those different dimensions. We'll load those. So after we brought in these dimension tables, you can see them all here on the right. And again, I hope you're starting to see what the benefit of naming these this way, because you can easily determine you're not, the dimension versus the fact. You're not going to pull any data really from country. You're not going to say, what's the revenue for this country? That doesn't happen that way. You know that if you see dimension, it's purely just, for lack of a better way to put it, it's kind of text versus dollar or values kind of a thing. It's not really, maybe that's not the best analogy, but this is just going to be dimensions, and it's not going to have any values you want to see. So, and this is, you can see all of the different, if you wanted to actually see the data, you can click on, different pieces here. And it's the same as kind of looking at that PowerPivot back end. So one thing you'll notice is we don't have a date table. This is one area that I think actually with the newest version of Power BI, I don't think this is the newest version. There is, I think, oh, it is right here, mark as date table. This is actually very new, so I am not as familiar with it. So I'm not going to use it. And so I actually create my own date table. So this is the way I do it. You go to new table, and I've already created a formula. Don't worry about this formula. You can look it up on your own, but it's basically creating a value called dim date. That's what I want to name this table. And then there are formulas called add columns, and you can add in different calendars. I looked this up and found it myself, and I just use it everywhere I go. And when you click enter on that, it's going to create a dimension table, a dimension date table. Now again, there's this value, this option here, and I literally just found this today, so I don't know much about it, but you can say mark as date table. When I tried playing around with it, it didn't initially give me what I wanted. So look that up on your own. This might be something easier, something more that's more like what in PowerPivot, you just that will create the date table for you. This one, it doesn't. So now that we've got all of our dimensions, our dimension tables, I should say, now, just like we did in PowerPivot, we've got to link these. So they're all over the place, and Power BI will attempt to match these, and generally they're pretty good. I've built a lot of these and haven't run into an issue where it's improperly or inaccurately mapped or linked these together. So generally, it's if they're named the same thing, they'll do it. So if I just like this, how I like to organize it. Obviously, you're getting an idea of how I like to organize it. I like to keep the dimensions all together and the fact tables all together. So let's just make sure that it's okay. So it's actually doing it on product, and we don't want to do it. There's a great example. So let's just delete that. We probably could do it on product because they're probably unique. Now again, and maybe I don't think I may not have mentioned this before, but what you link to your dimension tables, the column that you're linking in your dimension table must be unique. Obviously, you're going to have, for example, a lot of the same. You're going to have a lot of USA orders in your actuals or even your forecast. But your dimension table, what you map to that must be unique. So it was linking, in this case, product. Product is probably unique, but we didn't do that in the other one. So let's not do it in this one. We linked it to product number. So this one is linking to, hopefully it's to customer map, customer number. Okay. So actually, you know what? Let's look at our customer table. This is good hygiene here. So let's look at our customer table, our customer map. So we could probably do it to either customer map or customer number. Because again, here's an example where customer number is 1, Nike, customer 2, Nike Inc. So they're different numbers and different names in our actuals. But we only forecasted for Nike, so we want to consolidate it. Here's another example of consolidating it and being able to do that with a dimension table. But in terms of what we want to map, let's do it because we did it the same way in the other one. Let's just do it to number. And we did it there and did it there. Okay. So now we need to map our country. So we want to map it to country map because again, back to the uniqueness part of it. If we look at country, the country column here is not unique. You see USA, oh, you already see another USA. Our country map table, our country map column is something that's something I named. I named my mapping, so I know that I don't always want to use that column. These are all unique. There is not a duplicate in this entire column. And it has to be that way when you want to map or you want to link it to these different fact tables. So let's find our country and our actuals, and we can link it to country map. Same thing with our forecast, country to country map. Again, we're dragging from our fact to our dimension. So we need to map our region. So region. And also I will say, even if it's not named the same. So let's say, I've been using geo or geography and region interchangeably throughout this series. Let's say that in our actuals, it actually wasn't called region. It was actually called geo. The name of the column does not matter at all. If this was called geo, I could still drag this over to connect it with region. Doesn't matter. As long as the values in the columns themselves are going to match, then that's what matters. You could call this whatever you wanted. You could call it sandwiches, and you could still map it. I'm a little hungry. That's probably why I said that. So let's map this region from our forecast. Let's map it to region here. Okay. What is this telling us? Many to many. Oh, let's see, there's an example. I tried to drag it because you can drag and drop, I dragged it to region and not region map. So it told me it's a many to many. So that's a good, that's a fortuitous error that we had here to show that if we look at region, we see that in region, I tried to map it, region, the dim region. I tried to map it to this region, and we see that Americas is in here twice, and EMEA is in here twice. Same with APAC. It doesn't want that. Doesn't like that, obviously. That's why. If we go back, if we look at the region map column, these are all unique. So again, actuals or our forecast is not going to have every single value that's in this region map, but our actuals do. And so even though that the forecast doesn't have every value, it doesn't matter. But we need to map it to this unique column. In this case, it's region map. So let's map product number to product number. And product number to product number. And date to date. Okay, and then one more here. Date to date. Okay, so now we've linked the data sets to the tables.